Bam, 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 bam.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Our session is called Travel as an Alternative Form of Education, Life Learning on the Road. This session is designed for unschoolers, natural learners, life learners, and families who may be interested in traveling to enhance their lifelong learning. We'll speak for about 30 minutes and then open up the session for Q&A. We have a lot of information about our journey, a lot of information about our background, our projects, and our adventures at our website at raisingmiro.com. And we'll share our links and our contact information at the end of the session. So if you happen to be watching this as a recorded version, please feel free to contact us via our site if you have any questions.
We are so honored to be here at the Homeschooling Conference, among so many incredible experts and thought leaders in the field of education.
Unfortunately, we're neither of those. We're simply a mother and son who sought out a different way to live our lives and stumbled upon a lifestyle in which we discovered we were learning effortlessly, completely engaged in our lives, and having a lot of fun doing so.
My name is Miro, and I've been living a nomadic lifestyle with my mom for the past 4 years.
And I'm Lainie, his mom. This conference focuses on homeschooling and all that surrounds it. What makes this talk a little different is that we don't have specific credentials, no particular philosophy, nor do we even have a home at many of the times that we travel. But what we do have are our personal experiences to share with you.
First, a little background. My mom and I left the U.S. in July of 2009. I was 10 when we left, and we thought we were leaving for 1 year of traveling. As we started on our 5th year on the road, we've discovered so much about the power of travel as it relates to learning.
When we left the States, I had no idea we'd still be traveling today. Somehow I believed that traveling for 1 year would be sufficient education for my son, so I didn't even think about a curriculum to supplement his learning, as I knew intuitively he'd get way more out of the travel experience than anything that 5th grade could offer him. Miro went to public school until the 4th grade. I've always been a single parent, and I never even considered homeschooling since I ran my own business. And frankly, my thought about homeschooling in general was that homeschooling was only an option for strict religious people, and that we certainly were not. And unschooling? Absurd. I had never even heard of such a thing. I grew up with the belief that it was somebody else's responsibility to educate my son and to teach him. And I never even questioned that belief, which was strange. After all, there were experts in the subject who had years of education surrounding education, and who was I to question that?
I hated school. So when my mom suggested we travel for 1 year and I didn't have to go to that prison we call school, I was all for it. My mom's hunch was right. Travel gave me way more than 5th grade ever could, in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, to tell you the truth. Today I'm considered unschooling, who's traveling, and we want to share with you why it works.
We just started our 5th year of travel, and our view about learning has changed dramatically. We're going to share with you why travel can be approached as an alternative form of education for you and your family.
Travel and education go hand in hand, but for the purposes of this talk, we are going to define travel as long-term travel, at least 1 year.
So, how does learning happen? In our experience, we've discovered 3 types of inspirations that lead to learning. First, we learn naturally when we're encouraged and supported to follow our interests. Miro's discovered so many along the way, including permaculture, theater, mythology, cryptozoology, zombies, and writing. Second, the world is our classroom, and it can't help but to teach us. To the degree we are engaged in the world around us, we are matched with equal learning opportunities. Miro naturally picked up on so many things like Spanish, geography, history, politics, economics. But the most profound thing I noticed about my son's learning was that it happened naturally, and life wasn't broken down by subjects. And last, learning happens through community. What makes travel so different than formal education setting is where learning is passive, travel is participatory by nature. When a group of two or more are having the same experience, it invites the opportunity to process the experiences through conversation, which reinforces deeper learning. Formal education removes the family element from the learning process. Travel brings it back. In my experience, learning and co-creating with one another are the very foundation for a joyful life, and our traveling has granted us that privilege.
What are some examples of contextual learning? Receive a worldly education in context. We explore the artwork of Botero in Colombia, Guaycimin in Ecuador, Recinos in Guatemala. We've explored countless museums, studying pre-Columbian artifacts in the countries they were discovered in. We've traversed over 40 different ruins, spoken with noted researchers and archaeologists, and developed our own ideas about history. We've learned the art of traditional weaving, taught by the famous weavers of Chinchero. We've spoken with the victims of war, listened to their stories and empathized with their struggles, as we learned about politics and economics as expressed through the human condition. We've put our hands in the soil, planted native plants, and explored the historical relationship between human and plant within the world of ethnobotany. We learned about pirates, trade, and colonialism in Panama, stumbled upon legends of zombies, and pursued our own investigations through local inquiry. We've gone on archaeological expeditions and explored Inca graveyards, witnessing the unveiling of 500-year-old remains. We've helped document the anomalies of ancient culture, held 1,000-year-old skulls, and questioned if they were of human origin. We explored the highlands, the Andes, the beaches, and the jungles, and witnessed volcanoes and other geological wonders, and that's just to name a few. There is no doubt that for us, immersive travel equals powerful experiential learning.
So what other kinds of learning does travel offer? Self-reliance? And when we say what other kinds, we mean, things that are not normally subjects taught in school. And we think these are equally important. So self-reliance, when traveling, there's always new things to stimulate, excite, engage yourself and your child. When external things aren't available, guess what? He's learned to occupy his own time because there's enough stimulus around, and he's got his reading and writing, and he's become self-sufficient.
Travel presents opportunities to connect with people of all ages, all walks of life, all nationalities, and all professions. Socializing is a no-brainer when it comes to travel, and there isn't another activity out there that offers such diverse social opportunities.
Yes, so if somebody says, how is your world school child socialized, there's really no doubt. Tolerance and acceptance. Through travel, we are granted the magical opportunity to practice tolerance and acceptance on a daily basis. Travel brings out the worst and best in people. Living in close proximity with one another full time, one has to practice this lesson inspired by each other's work. Practice patience is another one. In conventional non-traveling lifestyles, patience is expected, so it's rarely practiced as routine schedules and obligations often become the norm. However, travel is the opposite. The unexpected is expected, and without doubt, travel requires countless opportunities to simply wait. Waiting in long lines, check-in, security procedures, and even boarding require patience. And then not finally, but also important is contributing to group effort. As parents, we say your opinion matters, but children's voices are often quieted in conventional lives as routine, schedules, responsibilities take priority. Thus, traveling provides the perfect platform to encourage all voices to be heard, to create equality among the group, the family as a unified unit. Practicing group dynamics is one of the most important life lessons, and encouraging your children to speak up and share their needs, desires, and interests can be a valuable way to learn it.
Becoming adaptable. When you travel, things ultimately do go wrong. There is no avoiding it. Things get lost. There are unexpected weather conditions. Issues come up surrounding transportation, and places are closed when they're supposed to be open. Being able to adapt or make do is an important lesson in flexibility and letting go of expectations.
And real-world problem solving. Through travel, Miro has had the opportunity to make real-world decisions, solve problems in context, plan and budget our lives. You can't get any more real-world than that.
How does the entire family benefit? Learn together. As my mom just pointed out earlier, formal education removes the family element from the learning process, and travel brings it back. These are pretty self-explanatory benefits. Collecting memories, not things, and creating stronger bonds. But what travel really offers that clearly no other form of education does is a global experience, which equates to thinking and becoming a global citizen. Through our travels, we have learned that humanity is our family, and the world is our home. Global citizenship has become our way of thinking, behaving, and the belief that we can make a difference in the world. Through our travels, we've learned that it is our responsibility to value the earth as precious and unique. We've learned that we must honor all of humanity as our family, all with diverse backgrounds and opinions, no better, no worse than our own. We've learned to identify with humanity first, before we start narrowing down our beliefs, passing judgment, viewing one another as somehow separate from oneself. You can't learn this stuff in a classroom.
So what are some of the strategies as a traveling family that you can use to keep your family engaged? Traveling to someplace new presents the perfect opportunity for each family member to research what they want to see, do, or experience, and add that to the itinerary, giving everyone a voice and making that everyone's responsibility.
Planning should always be a group activity as well, giving everyone an equal voice. Figure out what works best for your family, but schedule planning meetings and daily or weekly check-ins as needed.
Budgeting, that should also be a family group responsibility as it is in our family. Define the yearly budget, break it down by month, by week, by day, etc., and allow each family member to be responsible for a portion, which can involve currency conversion, defining separate budgets for entertainment, food, lodging, transportation, etc. These are real-world opportunities that should not be overlooked, and this is how you apply math in real life.
Logistics, like trains, bus, flight schedules, involve everyone.
And as we mentioned before, group dynamics are so important. Practicing group dynamics, I feel, is one of the most important aspects of life. That's a tool that you're going to use throughout your life. Encouraging your children to speak up and to share their needs, desires, and interests can be a valuable way to learn. Through consciously focusing on what's best for the group, every voice must be heard, and each person has the opportunity to exercise positive leadership in one circumstance or another. On the flip side, practicing grace and compromise can be an important element to learning about a group dynamic. You can't teach this stuff in books. This sort of lesson must be learned. And my favorite always is play. Always be reminded to experience the world through your child's eyes, because travel offers new sights, sounds, flavors, and experiences. And sometimes as adults, we become desensitized to these things. Our children allow us to see the world freshly through their eyes, and allow us to experience the world through a renewed childlike perspective. Use this perspective to play and realize that this is one of the very foundations of learning freely. Curiosity and play I hope I never lose sight of this quality inside of me.
So that's it. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation. We've put up links, and we invite you to visit us at our website anytime.
So there you go. If we spoke about the dynamics of learning together and how everything can become a lesson, and how world schooling is not just about the subjects, but I hope that we've pointed out that everything that we've shared can be, if you need to put them into the subject line of geography or math or history, you can do that. But it's such an integrated way of learning that we fully recommend world schooling as a legitimate form of education.
So do you want me to kind of help you manage Q&A? Feel free to put it in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand and you can ask a question. We found as a family a very interesting thing happened when we were traveling, which was we had to shift out of the mode of kind of being passive and letting someone else control sort of the schedule, and also being willing to be really flexible. And it felt like those skills, when we came back from our extended trip, really served us well in being able to define, no, we're not going to do it just because someone else says we should do it, or we're not going to feel rushed. We're going to not worry that something has to be in place. We're going to be willing to be flexible and take things as they come. Does it feel like those kind of larger lessons are part of what you're trying to communicate, sort of lifestyle changes?
Well, they are, and there's a lot that we didn't talk about because we wanted to really focus more on the learning education perspective. But one of the biggest shifts inside of both of us was learning to live from inspiration. First, how to listen to what it is inside of you that's speaking to you, what the inspiration is saying, follow that, and then to be present with all that life is presenting to you. We don't do that in normal life. We're on the cell. We're on schedules, and we tried to point out in our presentation that there's a lot in conventional life, a lot of scheduling, a lot of routine, a lot of things that we take for granted every single day, and we forget to be present, and we forget to look at these small things. And children teach us how to look again at the world through fresh eyes. He was 10 when we started to travel, and for the first time I was able to see things that I've seen a million times in my life, like fountains, but to see them again and have the permission to slow down and, not be on anybody else's schedule, and see the beauty of the water drops, because you never took time to look at it before. That's learning. I really think it's a lifestyle shift, but it's learning. It's everything.
So lots of nomads.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Lots of nomads in the U.S. Work online, and they're able to support themselves through some kind of virtual work. I don't want you to have to reveal anything that may be more personal, but how do people travel like you have traveled and keep a positive cash flow?
That's a really good question. We've talked about our income. We live on what we make in 1 year, what I used to make in 1 month. So we live on very, very, very little money. But when I lived in the States and when I owned my own business and I was accustomed to working 60 to 80 hours a week, incredible hours. But I didn't have time for anything. And that was really the biggest reason why we left, was I was missing out on his childhood. We were going to take a year off. The economy collapsed. We had the time. We had some savings. But to answer your question, are we digital nomads? I suppose we are. We earn a little bit of money from our blog. We earn a little bit of money from writing. We learn a little bit of money from other sales. And we talk about where our income comes from on our blog, but it's piecemeal, and we never know, it's not, a lot of people would not be comfortable not knowing if the money's coming in that month or not. But that's part of the lesson that we've learned. We've learned to trust the universe. We've learned to not stress. We've learned to let go of having to know. And when we talked earlier about being okay with the unexpected, that's part of it too. We're just a lot more mellow and a lot easier about life than we were before.
So do you know who John Taylor Gatto is?
Of course, yeah.
So there's an element to some of his work that would sort of describe that kind of frenetic behavior, the feeling of working so hard and being controlled, is actually purposeful. As you spent time away from that sort of frenetic lifestyle, do you feel like that's sort of an intentional pattern that benefits corporations and organizations the way that John Taylor Gatto does? Do you look now at the United States feeling like it's not just that people are caught up, but it's actually an intentional consumerist culture?
Well, that's a loaded question. I come from the world of advertising, and I worked almost 20 years creating consumer brands, messaging, and the campaigns, the strategies behind them. So to understand how consumerism affects the subconscious is really, I feel like I had the inside line to that, and that was something that helped me shift our lifestyle. We decided to become anti-consumers because consumerism was such a huge part of our life before, and I was helping to contribute to something that inside of me I saw as so destructive. And so I had this real inner struggle between, creating messaging that, I didn't feel good about. Later in my career, I moved into branding, and I started working for green eco companies and conscious businesses, but still, I was still contributing to that. And so when we decided to leave, we decided to give up all of that. And initially, it was for a year, and that was a little easier for us to wrap our head around. But back to your question, we view the United States and the first world countries very, very different. These sorts of cultures very differently now. It doesn't have value in our lives, and I think it was designed to keep people distracted.
So if you have a question for Lainie or Miro, raise your hand, put a question in the chat. I don't want to be monopolizing the conversation, but I am very curious. I'm curious, too, as well, has your sense of history changed as you've sort of encountered different perspectives on world history?
Absolutely. Our sense of history has changed because we've been so immersed in these ancient cultures, and we've started looking at the story of human history, not just modern history. We've got a greater understanding now of where we've come from. I never had an interest in archaeology before we started traveling. I've never had an interest in anthropology. I never pursued any of these things, but through virtue of travel and being exposed to these new ideas, we've dived down a rabbit hole where we have held, the 1,000-year-old skulls that are rumored to be perhaps not of human origin, and so we're entertaining all of these potentially new ideas that never would have come across our universe had we not started traveling.
And to Jesse, I would like to write for my life. I don't know what else I will be doing, but I know I want to write. But that provides an answer.
Jesse's question, by the way, was, Miro, what are your dreams for the future? Were there any other questions? And the question from Jesse was, how do you feel your global experiences will inform your writing?
I don't know. I don't know. It's like, because I don't know.
You know, one of the things that he was interested in maybe a year and a half ago or so was cryptozoology and world cryptozoology. And so the idea of different cultures having different mythologies about the creatures and going to different countries, he's been able to actually explore some of these personally. You want to talk about the cryptozoology a little bit?
Okay. Okay. So the question from Jesse is, maybe you'll have a broader worldview and experience to write from. And yes, I think that is probably the case. All these experiences will probably give me a broader imagination, I'd like to believe, because everything has to start somewhere. And I've seen more, so there's more places to start from. Okay.
Great. Does that answer your question? Good. And then Jesse asked, do you read literature where you are? Of where you are. Oh, I see. So like Spanish literature or stories about Peru or...
I mean, I've tried, but it is a bit difficult. I speak Spanish, but reading in Spanish is incredibly difficult. So I try.
Okay, here's a question. I'm thinking what keeps coming up most from this freedom year experience is the mindset. People believing things such as it's not legal to think for themselves. What advice do you offer to help free people's minds? Wow.
Big question.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a wonderful question. Freeing people's minds from the idea that it's not legal, I think that's where somebody's more concerned about what other people are thinking. I think if people are interested in the legality of traveling, all they have to do is do a little bit of research. But I think the real freedom comes when you learn how to listen to your inspiration. There was a point when in 2008, when I knew with every core of my being that we needed to make a change, that I kept on dreaming of traveling with Miro. I kept on feeling, being pulled, inspired to move out of a different lifestyle. That was frightening. It was frightening. I wasn't as concerned about the legality of it. I was concerned about my own sanity if I didn't follow this internal pull that was so strong inside of me, telling me that we needed to do this. There was less fear about the actual doing it and more fear about what happens if I don't follow this inspiration, because I feel like I'm going to be really sick if I don't. That to us became the drive. When I decided that it was less important to care about what other people said or what their opinions were, even, what the legalities were. I mean, I didn't feel like we were doing anything illegal. I knew that what we were doing, what we were inspired to do was, this thing to do. I hope that answers your question. I know that was a very difficult question. I hope that satisfies your question, though. Bernard asks,
can you talk a bit about the types of friendships that you have developed amid your travels? Where and how do you connect with people in your travels?
Well, I think that's for you, Miro.
Oh. We've made many friendships over the past 5 years now? 5 years. And, it's just great to connect with people that are also out here pushing their comfort levels. And it's nice, definitely. we meet these people just really all across, everywhere we go. I mean,
we meet locals, we meet travelers, we meet children, we meet old people, we meet people that are on their own journey. But there is something very different about these sorts of friendships that you meet on the road. You always know when you make a good friend that it's temporary. And that kind of letting go has become a part of, I mean, it's a sad part, but it's part of life, and it's you know, it's one of those world lessons that we've learned. The hardest thing that we'll, you know, saying goodbye to our family when we left, of course, was very, very difficult. But we had a very deep emotional connection with our dog, and that was very, very difficult too. But throughout the 4 or 5 years, I've met hundreds of dogs that I've loved equally to my dog, and I've loved these dogs and sat down on the street and pet them, you know, and had a very temporary connection with them. And so it's a different kind of being in the moment and letting go sort of lesson. Another question?
Mm-hmm.
I think Monica's question is a really important one, which is how do you help people get a sense of independence? I'm not sure she meant legal on the sense of lawful. I think she just meant, is it okay to be an independent thinker? And the difficulty is that for ideas to spread, they have to be kind of spreadable. And independent thinking isn't an idea that spreads rapidly like commercialism or consumerism. And so I think we saw Gandhi do it with spinning, right, which was an idea that re-empowered people to take back control of their lives. It was very simple. They could spin their own cloth. They were in control of their lives. And Monica, I'm feeling like that it's something like that that's needed, that kind of is simple for everybody to adopt, no matter what income level or educational background. You need something that can compete with the commercial meme.
Well, every family that we've spoken to that have taken a year off to travel has gained these sorts of incredible, valuable lessons. And through the travels and through, you know, the unity of the family, and through the connections that they've met on the road, they've really gained those independent thoughts, because it's taking you outside of American Idol, and it's taking you outside of, you know, general pop culture, and it's taking you outside of daily consumerism, and it makes you reliant upon yourself and your character and the group that you're traveling with and your own resources, and you design your experiences daily by your choices, your independent choices. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really, really grateful to have shared this time with everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
And join us at our website, or if you have any questions or anything, feel free to shoot us an email.
I love Project Homeschool Peru. I didn't know about the Homeschool Travels, but yes, those links are there. And you're in the network now, so people can contact you through homeschoolconference.com. Directly, of course.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you
Thanks to
so
both
much.
of you. Thanks, everybody.